Nearly every summer, our family heads out to Colorado to enjoy the beauty and wonder of God's creation that is the Rocky Mountains. And while we enjoy hiking and exploring, we just simply love seeing the mountains. In fact, one of my favorite things about going to Colorado is the drive, which sounds crazy, but the slow, gradual build from the prairies to the Rockies never gets old. And it's why we intentionally leave our home early in the morning in order to see the glory of the mountains in daylight. But when we leave Colorado for home, we also leave early in the morning when it's still dark. And the drive home is much less mesmerizing because we aren't as aware and attentive to the beauty that surrounds us. It's the same scenery, but we aren't aware of it in the dark. Now, the gospel writer Luke records for us a series of teachings from brilliant Jesus as he is in Jerusalem preparing for the very purpose of his coming to earth. And in Luke 21, we see Jesus speaking about what is to come and how his followers are to be prepared, ready, watchful, and alert regarding his return. And in verse 28, Jesus gives this strong exhortation. Now, when these things begin to take place, straighten up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Now, Jesus is calling his disciples in this moment to live their lives with an attentiveness to their own lives as well as to the world that they inhabit. As Jesus says in verse 34, "But watch yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and the cares of this life." To live as followers of Jesus in this world, as citizens of his kingdom, we are called to live with a level of watchfulness and expectancy. We must be keenly aware that we inhabit a world that is simultaneously filled with the glory of God's presence and plagued with the presence of sin, evil, and death. Which means we should live our lives more like my family's drive to Colorado than our drive from Colorado. We should live our lives with eyes wide open to see God's glory in creation, to see his hand at work through our work, to see, as the poet Gerard Manley Hopkins put it, that the world is charged with the grandeur of God. But we must also live with an awareness of the powers at work in us and around us that seek to unmake us, to be aware that within each of us resides the potential to bring about our own ruin and the ruin of others. The life of the kingdom that Jesus calls us to is a life that is lived with eyes wide open, a life that is lived with a constant expectancy for God to show up, to work in us and through us. And so as we go about our day today in the places that God has called us, to serve, to live, to function, to love, may we do so by straightening up, raising our heads, because our Redeemer is near. Stay watchful.